Well, hi everyone. You've gotten to the right stuff, but unfortunately, Jen is frozen in time. It wouldn't be the right stuff if Jen wasn't having issues with her computer or some kind of technical difficulties were happening. But anyway, hi to everyone on air today. You've correctly gotten to our station, and I hope it's been a really great week for you. It's been an interesting week in politics. We're going to let Jen sign on again. I'm sure that she'll join us any minute now. I don't know who to say hello to. But at any rate, it's time for the right stuff. Well, hi everyone, and hi to Aunt Santa. How you feeling, Aunt Santa? I hope you're feeling better. We are here live. When I say we, I'm kidding, of course, because it's only me. And there's Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Hi, Jen. You made it.
Mom.
I'm so glad.
Oh my God, I hope we're not live.
And Lucille says, hi, beautiful lady. Hi, Lucille, our OG. Aunt Santa says she's feeling better.
Can you see my mom? Anybody? I don't know how to use this thing. Oh, this is funny.
Well, at any rate, Jen, I'd ask you how your week is going, but I'm gonna give you bells.
Oh my God. I don't know how to do this. Anyway, I have nothing to say because I told her I didn't want to see the videos. I don't know what's going on in the news. So everyone just look at my beautiful face while I call her.
Who are you calling?
Well, this is embarrassing.
Who are you calling?
Jen? You voted.
All right, Lucille
for who?
Voted.
No, I'm kidding. I can't ask you that. Let's see where Leticia is. She was blaming me for this, by the way.
Jen, I just want you to know that we're on air today.
I know.
Can you not see me?
No.
Well, everybody can see you. I don't know what the hell you're doing. Hi, Lou.
So, where are you?
I'm on the screen, Jen. I don't know what to tell you.
Wait, I don't understand. What do you mean? They see us both.
Yes, they see us both. So where are you? So you're here. Why can't you see me?
Wait, what do you mean? I don't know.
I'm there.
But I can't even hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, only on the phone. Right.
Sign out and sign on again.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay. We are going to have a great show tonight for our tens and tens of viewers as soon as Jen gets back on. Lucille, I see you, but well, now you only see one of us because Jen is gone. But hopefully here she comes again. Let's see what happens. Hold on a second. Jen, can you see me?
Yes.
All right. This is great marketing at its best.
Wow, we had the most viewers too. We had like 11.
Yeah, but then they left because they said, what the hell are these two dames doing? We don't know what the hell's going on here. Jen, I know everybody has to understand that Jen is super busy and she takes an hour out of her week every week just to bring you this very, very highly produced show.
Yes, I do. It's true.
So, Jen, tonight's show is about the Supreme Court of the United States and its influence on American society throughout the years.
I think we should do a show about how to do a podcast correctly.
Well, that would be good, but we'd have to know how to do a podcast correctly. All right, so some libs are losing their minds over recent Supreme Court decisions on abortion, on guns, and on prayers in school. They say the Supreme Court should be abolished because it's overstepping. As always, we are here to bring you both sides and the truth about the situation so that we all have better knowledge when we're speaking about these issues. But before I play some of the clips of other Supreme Court decisions that have shaped America and American policy, I want to show you some of the libs and what they had to say about the Supreme Court. Before I do that, let me just say hi to Jody Wasserman. Hey, Jody.
I had a dream about Jody last night.
Oh, really? Was it a dream or was it a dream? What kind of dream? What'd you dream?
She was sitting out and she was across the way in another window when we were talking. I was like, hey, Jody, I see you. It was weird.
Well, maybe it was a premonition of tonight's show. Anyway. Okay, so my first clip is from Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Listen to what she has to say about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Here we go.
If you read Clarence Thomas' concurrence, he said, thank you, fuck Clarence Thomas.
Thank you, Clarence Thomas!
He thinks we are going to stand idly by when they take our rights.
I hate women.
So while young children and people are being killed in Chicago every single day, she is on stage saying fuck Clarence Thomas. So thank you. That's oh my God, your father's here. Beetlejuice. Bobby, that's mean. But I gotta say, I agree. Jody, who should I vote for? Well, if you're a Democrat, I would say vote for Hochul because we are good. We have the
Why would you say that?
If she's a Democrat in the primary today, she should vote for Hochul because Hochul, we have the best chance of beating Hochul, although she's got $30 million. Tom Suozzi's
too much of a blue dog Democrat.
He is a blue dog Democrat. If you're a Republican, any of the four are fantastic. Rob Astorino is a good friend of mine. Andrew Giuliani's a good friend.
I like Lee Zeldin.
And Lee Zeldin is endorsed by the conservatives. So, and Harry Wilson is a good guy too. But any of the four, if you're a Republican. Tammy's here. I voted. Hey, beautiful ladies. Hey, Tammy, I'm glad you voted. I love our viewers because they exercise their right to vote, and that is important. So, what do you think about Lightfoot, Jen?
Oh, I hate her. I seriously think, I don't know how she's still in office. I don't.
Well, you know, it's just amazing to me that with all that is going on in Chicago, that's her main concern, Clarence Thomas and the Supreme Court. And she goes on stage in front of thousands of people.
They only are concerned about what fits their agenda, and their agenda is bullshit.
Could you imagine? Remember, I mean, AOC went after Tucker Carlson for calling her out on stuff. We've heard over and over again how mean the Republicans are, but she could stand on stage and say, fuck Clarence Thomas over the fact that they sent abortion back to the states to decide. But it gets better. Watch this from the Brain Trust, AOC, when she's talking about Supreme Court justices.
You think the House Judiciary Committee should begin the process of an investigation there?
If we allow Supreme Court nominees to lie under oath and secure lifetime appointments to the highest court of the land and then issue without basis, if you read these opinions, issue without basis rulings that deeply undermine the human and civil rights of the majority of Americans, we must see that through. There must be consequences for such a deeply destabilizing action and hostile takeover of our democratic institutions.
I don't even know what she said.
Well, she
on earth.
Anthony Casson says, "I need Jen's stop sign," and there Jen gave it to her. Do it again, Jen. Jody Wasserman says, "I don't like Hochul." Nobody likes Hochul. That's the whole idea.
Hochul has such bad Botox. Whoever she goes to puts her eyebrows up here. If you notice, there.
Well, her and Nancy Pelosi with the clown eyebrows drawn on. I can't. So because the Supreme Court, now they're accusing the Supreme Court justices of lying in their Senate interviews. And so now they want to impeach Supreme Court justices. So they're going to have a judiciary hearing on the Supreme Court justices because they made decisions that they are saying are dismantling our democratic system. Now,
they want a democracy, but when things don't go their way, they want to silence everyone until it does.
They can't have a democracy without the Constitution of the United States. And the Supreme Court's job is to, based on cases that are before them, to judge whether the cases have merit in the Constitution, what the Constitution speaks to and what it doesn't. And nowhere in the Constitution is abortion even mentioned. Actually, nowhere in the Constitution is women mentioned, except for to give us the right to vote. So abortion was never mentioned. And so rightly so, they said that the states have to decide. But it's amazing to me that they're losing their mind over the fact, and they're lying, all of them lying, saying that they're coming for gay marriage, they're coming for contraception, all because they sent abortion back to the states to be decided, which is exactly where it belongs, according to the Constitution. And some of the clips that I'm going to show you later on other issues that the Dems all applauded, also, the dissenting justices said these belong in the states, but she wants to impeach the Supreme Court. So now, this one is great. This is Elizabeth Warren, and she was at a protest in Massachusetts, and she is angry with rage, angry with rage. Watch her rage about women having the absolute right to kill their babies. Oh, and watch her admit that the theatrics are being used to drive lunatic lefts to the polls in November. This you're not going to believe.
Roe is dead. 6 extremists on the United States Supreme Court have decided that they can force all of America to bend to their personal religious and moral views. Roe is dead, but the Supreme Court extremists do not get the last word. We are here because we will make Roe alive again. Clarence Thomas has already made clear he's coming after everybody else. He's coming after the LGBTQ community. He's coming after contraception. He is coming after anyone who doesn't live and doesn't look just like Clarence Thomas thinks that the ideal American is supposed to live and look. Well, we've got news for Clarence Thomas. He doesn't get the last word. But most of all, we are aimed like a laser beam on the election in November. Make no mistake, Roe is on the ballot.
I hope he doesn't make me look like her. That haircut. I'll take anything but that, or Hochul, whatever her name is, and the other one, Nancy.
So they're using it as a ploy to get Democrats to the polls in November. She said so. She was very honest about it. And it amazes me that mainstream media isn't saying anything about it. Oh, geez. Jody Wasserman, I'm voting for Giselle Maxwell. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Giselle for a minute. She got 20 years today. 20 years. She issued an apology. And then her lawyer says, we're going to appeal the decision. So which is it? Are you sorry or are you not sorry? I mean, and 20 years, really?
With the 5-year watched, I forget what it was. I did skim through the news today. 5 years of supervised.
Well, listen. They took young girls and brought them to rich men to have sex with them. I mean, it is a freaking sex trafficking ring, and she gets 20 years, and and she gives this half-ass apology. I'm sorry, anyone that abuses children, they should be life in prison, because that's not by accident. That was
but that's our system. Look at the guy that killed the Asian man over duck sauce in New York. He's out on bail.
Well, and how about orange is the new black? How about the 120 pounds of fentanyl that was seized in Los Angeles, they arrested a guy with 120 pounds of fentanyl, enough to kill the freaking country, and they let him out with no bail because he didn't have any priors. Thank you very much, Anthony. He agrees with me about life in prison. They let him out because he didn't have priors, because he was an illegal immigrant. He didn't have priors in this country.
There's always a gateway to doing something. Just let the first one go. Then you know what? I'm going to go out and do something. I'm going to plan it all out and do something spectacular if I'm going to get out.
But when you think about, wait a minute, hold on a second, Jody Wasserman. I knew that delivery guy who used to deliver Chinese food to
the gyno.
To your gyno?
To your gynecologist? Why were you eating Chinese food with your gynecologist?
You better answer that one, Jody.
I have all day.
I mean, really, I've heard of, drinks being served in these upscale gynos, but Chinese. All right.
I've been to a gynecologist.
And before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge that 51 humans are dead today because of Joe Biden and his border or lack of border security. They were in the back of a truck, and the truck was overheated. There was no ventilation. They were being smuggled into Texas, and they died, and they were dying, and they were abandoned and locked in the truck. And I don't know how true this is, but some of the news was reporting, so I'm going to guess it's true. It's just, I cannot believe it.
So you're going to guess it's true.
Well, the news is reporting. I don't trust anything in the news anymore. But they said that they threw in bags of steak seasoning so they wouldn't smell the carnage, so that it would smell like rotting meat and not human bodies. But this is another trafficking. And 51 people dead, and probably more to come.
I still don't understand who would want to come here. You can't afford gas. You can't get a car. You can't do anything. You can't pay your rent. Why would you want to come here?
Well, because if you're an illegal immigrant,
to live.
Well, if you're an illegal immigrant who's seeking asylum, you get welfare, you get food stamps. You get medical, you get education. And quite frankly, even under the conditions that we're living here in America, I mean, even in the worst conditions, it's better than the countries they're coming from. But Biden and crew quickly want to change America into Mexico and Guatemala and Venezuela and Cuba. That's what they're trying to do. Jody Wasserman says, the place I used to work for, Jen, been there. That's where she got her Chinese food delivered. Okay. All right. So our prayers go out to the families. I mean, I don't even know what to say. This is just insanity. But Joe Biden is literally, his policies are killing people, Americans as well as illegal migrants who are coming over that border. And, a lot of children have died coming over that border. But today's about the Supreme Court, and hopefully somewhere somebody will bring a lawsuit against the United States and against the Biden administration for not protecting us as United States citizens. And hopefully the Supreme Court will hear that and find our way. But here's one thing the Supreme Court did do. And I wonder if AOC wants it abolished still. How about same-sex marriage? Do you remember this? And remember who caused same-sex marriage to be ratified? Watch
the Supreme Court and this landmark ruling, the court making same-sex marriage legal in this country across every state in this nation. Going into today, 37 states in Washington, D.C., 13 states illegal, but those 37 states had same-sex marriage, and now that will change in all 50 states. I want to get back to John Karl at the White House because, John, 2 days in a row, yesterday, the Supreme Court, for the second time, handing the president a victory. And as we just learned, the president has tweeted he would consider this a victory at the court as well for his policy.
Absolutely. Two major victories for the president at the Supreme Court, and both of them coming courtesy of justices appointed by Republican presidents. In this case, Justice Anthony Kennedy was the majority on this, was that critical fifth vote joining the liberals. Justice Anthony Kennedy appointed to the court by Ronald Reagan. And yesterday, the majority decision in that Obamacare case was Justice John Roberts, appointed Chief Justice, and to the court by President George W. Bush.
So 2 Republicans changed the way society worked by allowing for same-sex marriage across the nation, no matter which state. And also, one I don't agree with is Obamacare, but they made it the rule of the land. And so therefore, it was upheld by the Supreme Court. How many conservatives did you see out in the street protesting, saying, F this one or F that one when these decisions came down? But
no one.
I don't know how a member of Congress can stand there and say they want to impeach the Supreme Court or that the Supreme Court's decision will not stand when it is in the Constitution. And when
she has no brain. It's going against what she wants. So she's going to cry about it. That's it. That's all it is. Impeach, impeach, impeach. Everyone gets an impeachment. That's what it's about. They'll keep going on until they tire themselves out or the other side out. That's all they're there for.
You mean like children throwing a tantrum?
Yes.
Well, the thing is that when you're sworn into Congress, you're sworn to uphold the Constitution. Yeah. And I don't think any of them have read the Constitution.
No.
Because if you read the Constitution, you know that the states are sovereign. And that these cases that are being brought before the Supreme Court, the rights to decide these cases are they're very narrow. The Supreme Court's rights, operations are very narrow, as we're going to see in some other clips. But they have changed many, many times the way society operates, including with Roe v. Wade, who, by the way, there were justices on the Supreme Court that thought that Roe was wrong, including what's her name? Why can't I? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said over and again that Roe was not founded in a good decision, and that if they wanted to make sure that abortion stayed legal across the nation, the Congress had to pass a law. But just like immigration, that they don't want to do anything about, they didn't want to do anything to codify abortion. And so they didn't act, and it was overturned because it was a bad decision. And it was made basically by justices who had an agenda. All justices, right? They're appointed and they come with a certain point of view. But ultimately, their decision has to be based in the Constitution. So how about this one? This one is Brown versus the Board of Education. The justices, they decided and changed the way we do things. Watch this.
On May 17th, 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its landmark decision in the case of Brown versus Board of Education. The court ruled unanimously that racial segregation in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. This decision grew out of several cases that challenged racial segregation in schools across America. Because the lawsuits addressed the same legal questions, the Supreme Court consolidated them into one case. Its lead plaintiff was Oliver Brown. He sued the Topeka, Kansas Board of Education on behalf of his daughter, Linda. She was a black public school student who lived just a few blocks from an elementary school in Topeka. However, she was forced to travel over an hour to reach the all-black school she was assigned to attend. When she tried to enroll in the closer neighborhood school, which was all white, the request was denied. In the U.S. Supreme Court, Brown was represented by NAACP lawyer Thurgood Marshall. He argued that segregated schools were harmful and left black children with feelings of inferiority. The court unanimously decided in Brown's favor, declaring that separate educational facilities were, without exception, unequal. Chief Justice Earl Warren declared that, quote, "In the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place."
So,
but get rid of them.
Get rid of them. So if they want to overturn, so they don't respect this court's decision. So if we start to revisit the Supreme Court's decision over and over again, and we don't respect that decision, then we are going to open up a can of worms.
All the way backwards.
All the way back. And that's where things become very dangerous. Hey, look who joined us.
Oh, your mother. Wait, my grandmother.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. And the thing about the abortion issue that I don't understand is that they're saying that it should, the libs are saying it shouldn't go back to the state. But how about when the Supreme Court found that it was okay to mandate chemicals going into everyone's body? Nobody was screaming then, my body, my choice, except those of us who recognize that no government should tell you what you should put into your body. So here we go. All right. So that was Brown versus the Board of Education. So if these libs open up this can of worms, they are going to be unraveling some landmark decisions that have changed the way our society operates. And back then you didn't see all those southern states saying, F Warren or F the Supreme Court. There was a suit, it was decided, it was accepted. So the next one is affirmative action, which there are plenty of people that think affirmative action is illegal and is controversial, but watch how we got affirmative action across the land.
One crucial Supreme Court case that helps us better understand affirmative action is the 1978 case of Regents of the University of California v. Bakke. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s argued not only for the end of segregation and legal inequality, but also for special advantages for minorities in federal contracts and college admissions. President Lyndon Johnson asserted that equal opportunity was not enough. Affirmative action, or preferential consideration, was necessary to truly bring about equality for all. This set up a debate between those who believed that affirmative action contradicted the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which declares, "No state shall deny to any person with its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws," against those who believed that the federal government needed to take action to remedy the persistent and lingering consequences of discrimination. In light of affirmative action, the University of California at Davis established a special admissions program for minority students applying to their medical school. Alan Bakke was a Caucasian U.S. Marine who had a master's degree in mechanical engineering and a 3.46 GPA, but was twice rejected by the UC Davis Medical School Admissions Committee. He sued the school and argued that UC Davis violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which said that no person shall be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The Supreme Court heard Bakke's case in 1978. The court's decision was one of the more confusing of any Supreme Court case in history, as it contained a perplexing jumble of differing opinions. The justices essentially held that affirmative action programs could take race into account as one of many factors in admissions, but that they could not have fixed quotas for a certain number of minorities, as UC Davis had done. Therefore, in a slim 5-4 majority, they supported the goals of affirmative action while deciding that Bakke had been denied equal protection due to the methods of the special admissions program.
So now they want to go back and get rid of the Supreme Court. Now that was a jumbled decision. It was close and they weren't clear on it, but it became the law of the land. Affirmative action was allowed. You just couldn't say, I want 10 Black people, 2 Native Americans, 1 Chinese. You couldn't say that. You could say, we will give exceptions to those who are of minority standing. And if their grades aren't as high as some of the white people, then we can bring them on. We're not just going to go by grades. We're going to give you a boost for minority standing. But the Supreme Court was close and they were jumbled. So if we open up the discussion about the Supreme Court and the cases that they have heard and decided, this is another thing that can go away. So, I mean,
they just want their way all the time. That's it.
And more, it shows us, though, that they are using these decisions to try to keep control of the House and the Senate and the presidency.
And that's what they were saying yesterday on the Post. I saw the paper when I went to the deli. It said, it had all the crying liberals on the cover saying they are in fear that this country is turning more conservative. Well, I'm sorry. What are we supposed to? We can't. There's no balance. Like your way or no way.
Well, and we're turning more conservative because of their ridiculous policies.
Not working.
Their ridiculous policies are causing the country to become more conservative. And it's a dangerous space to be in when they are, calling justices liars. They are calling into question the decisions that have shaped this land. And some of them I don't agree with, but I respect it. It is what the court says, and some of them are on shaky ground. So when they open that can of worms, boy, oh boy, do we want to live in a country where those elected officials are our only voice? That are actually interpreting the Constitution and throwing out laws for us to follow? Hell no. I want justices. I don't care if they're Democrat appointees or Republican appointees. I want justices there that show some balance and actually interpret the Constitution, whose job it is to do nothing other than read the Constitution and interpret it. Last person I want telling me what the Constitution says is AOC or Lori Lightfoot, for God's sakes. All right. Well, that was the Bakke case, and that was affirmative action. Today is like going to school, because I want everyone to see how the Supreme Court actually does impact our life every day. Because most people don't even get it, because we don't get to vote for Supreme Court justices. So we don't think about the Supreme Court. And most people don't ever have a reason really other than divorce and wills to be involved with lawyers. And they don't understand the legality of and the implications that certain laws have on us. So the next one, I think this one is a really interesting one as well. This is one of those where the dissenters, even though they agree with the opinion, said it should go back to the states. And this is a hot topic on whether illegal immigrants should receive an education. Now we have the whole DACA situation in front of us, and Congress hasn't done anything on it. But this was Plyler versus DOE, and SCOTUS decision gave illegal immigrants the right to an education. Watch.
Tyler, Texas, 1975. Under the leadership of James Plyler, the Tyler Independent School District begins charging $1,000 a year for unauthorized immigrant students to attend school there. It had justified this decision by a recent Texas law that said it wouldn't use taxpayer money to educate students who were not, quote, legally admitted into the United States. In response, 4 families affected by this new policy sued the school district. The district court, which, in order to protect their privacy, identified them using pseudonyms, decided that the kids should be allowed to go to school and found both the state law and the school district's policy unconstitutional. They argued the law and policy went against the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. The school district appealed, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit agreed with the lower court. The district appealed to the Supreme Court, and the court agreed to hear the case, combining it with a similar case, weirdly called Texas v. Certain Named and Unnamed Alien Child. Because they viewed education as a right, and because they weren't hurting the state that much by going to school, the court said these students should be able to go. Leading the dissent was Justice Berger, who argued it wasn't the judicial system's place to solve this issue, but that it ought to be solved through the legislative process. This might surprise some, but the dissent actually said these kids should be able to go to school. They just argued the Constitution didn't allow them to decide on this.
But yet we're all swimming in student loan debt.
And just like Roe, they said, the dissenters said, we don't have the right to decide this. The Constitution says nothing about this. This needs to go back to the states. And
go to Mexico and try to go to school for free. We owned plenty of land when I was married, and I couldn't get a 20% resident discount at the store. Try and go to school for free. Your head will be on the side of a mountain somewhere. I guarantee you.
Oh my God. But you know, in America, we pay for everything. We pay for everybody, whether you're a citizen, you're not a citizen, not only school, we pay for your health care. We pay
for all your stuff, but you can't fill up your car to get to work so that you can pay for all your shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, there's, it was a close vote. There was dissenters who said it doesn't belong in the Supreme Court. So what happens if they don't codify this, if they don't make it a federal law? It could be brought up again. Another lawsuit could be brought, and the Supreme Court could decide to look at it. And if they decide to look at it, there's always a chance that they can overturn it, especially when the Constitution doesn't speak about it. And this is why these libs need to read the freaking Constitution. Unbelievable.
It's literally going to be mind-blowing if you keep going.
No, I can't because, listen, especially now, we have the January 6th hearings going on, and the libs are trying so very hard to make a case that Donald Trump caused the insurrection, right? No, even though nobody tried to take over Congress, nobody tried to kill Congress people, nobody did any of that stuff. They're framing this theater for insurrection. And for an extra added bonus, they are using abortion as another linchpin issue to, try and get their people out to vote.
Yeah. Keep wasting our money. We're not going to have any money to give to the immigrants to come over the border illegally. Wasting our money on trials and bullshit. Keep doing it.
Well, and they're and 1 million suburbanites changed their registration to Republican in the last several months. It was a net gain of 450,000, I think. So, but when suburbanites start to change their registration to Republican, the likelihood of Congress staying Democrats staying in control of Congress is slim.
And I mean, unless they rig it, which
Well, which, again, is a possibility. And it's interesting, people say Donald Trump lost all his lawsuits, about the elections not being secure. Well, no, just like everything else, if the court doesn't choose to hear it or
prove it or, listen to the evidence, see the evidence and display it. Yeah. So as long as there's evil at the top, you can't get through it.
Well, the truth is that courts can delay.
Do what you want. That's what I say. Do what you want.
Well, courts can delay things, like our case, saying that the mayor of the city of New York didn't have the right to mandate that people get vaccines for more than 5 days. When he shut down everything and said you had to show proof of vaccination before you got in. There's nothing in the city charter that gave the mayor that mandate for more than 5 days, and that had to be in an event of emergency. But the judges we were in front of were appointed by Democrats, and they didn't want to be the one to decide this that would set a precedent. And, could we appeal it? Sure, we could. But at this point, it was moot, and I basically bankrupted my retirement fund for it. But on its the legal standing, it was absolutely true. If the mayor wanted to have that power, he had to get it from the state legislature, which would have never given it to him. And that's, by the way, the reason that Cuomo and Hochul were allowed to do all the things that they did with the employees and everything else was because there was no legislature in session. They gave the power to the governor to make these decisions. And when they did that, they sidestepped the New York taxpayer voter, because they never had a representative, on the floor arguing their case. And that is illegal. And that can also be brought up if the courts wants to hear it. But, it's a pick and choose situation. So I want everybody to understand that forever, the Supreme Court has always been appointed by the president and then confirmed by the Senate. And they're going to have different personal philosophies. But what they're trying to do now, because Trump was able to get 3 appointees, is to say that these are Trump's appointees and they're evil because they're religious. And that is probably the most galling I've ever heard. Okay, so now, used to be that burning the American flag was illegal in lots of places. But guess what? SCOTUS changed that. Watch this.
Someone stole an American flag from a flagpole from a downtown building. Eventually, that flag ended up in the hands of Revolutionary Communist Youth Brigade member Gregory Lee Johnson. At the height of the protests, Johnson poured kerosene on the flag and set it on fire. Police arrested him and charged him with violating a Texas law that said you can't vandalize respected objects if such action were likely to get people mad. A Texas court convicted Johnson, and he was sentenced to 1 year in prison and fined $2,000. He appealed his case to the 5th Court of Appeals of Texas, but lost the appeal. He appealed again to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and they actually overturned his conviction, saying the First Amendment to the Constitution protects flag burning as symbolic speech. It also argued that Johnson did not hurt or threaten anyone by burning the flag. Texas was like, nuh-uh, and it asked the Supreme Court to hear the case. The Supreme Court agreed, and they heard arguments on March 31st, 1989. At first, the court considered if the First Amendment protected non-speech acts, since this wasn't about Johnson's verbal communication. So basically, they wondered if the act of burning the American flag should be considered expressive conduct. Ultimately, they determined it was. In a highly controversial decision, the court ruled 5-4 in favor of Johnson. Justice William Brennan delivered the opinion, but I'm going to quote Justice Anthony Kennedy as he put it pretty well. He said, quote, "The hard fact is that sometimes we must make decisions we do not like. We make them because they are right in the sense that the law and the Constitution, as we see them, compel the result. And so great is our commitment to the process that, except in the rare case, we do not pause to express distaste for the result, perhaps for fear of undermining a valued principle that dictates the decision decision. This is one of those rare cases.
Also, most of the flags are ordered from China, so that's a fact.
And that's why they go up so easily. That's why.
Burn it. We'll order more.
They're highly flammable.
Did I tell you that I hate this country? Because I'm starting to really hate it.
You can't hate this country. Listen, there is nowhere on earth that is better than this country. This country.
I just got a text from Joe Cassess that there is a man peeing in our septic tank outside of the building with his pants down. I hate this country. But yet I pulled into a bus lane and got a $115 ticket. I'm done.
Well, listen, you know, as distasteful as things are, this country is still the greatest place to be. And it's up to people like us to fight to keep it that way. And thankfully, we don't have to work that hard, because Democrat policies everywhere are creating a situation where people are saying, no way, I cannot vote Democrat. I am not going to continue.
We'll see.
You know, they're not representing me. They don't understand who we are. I mean, look at the Hispanic population. They are moving over to the Republican Party in droves because they are traditionally conservative, because they are Catholic. They're religious, you know, and it's not just Hispanics. African Americans are moving over. People, look, normal people want to go to work, pay their bills, spend time with their family, you know, play on Facebook, have a Facebook fight, you know, say what they want, and you know, not be reprimanded. This group of libs, which are white elites, frankly, if you saw all the riots with BLM, they were mostly white girls, white teenagers who were doing all of this. And if you see Jane's Revenge on abortion, same group of people that are out there. They don't know anything. And frankly, none of them have traveled outside of the United States. You know, try going to Iran and see what it's like to be a woman or gay or
get a free education or get free food.
Yeah, ask them to pay for your education.
Your husband and you're on your head gets taken off your body and put on a post on your fence of your family's home.
Yeah, try to be gay in Iran. Go ahead, just try. They'll set you on fire like they set that flag on fire.
Let us know how that goes for you.
Yeah. So now this one, talk about distasteful. This one is ironic, right? And I'm going to tell you why. Because it is Brandenburg versus Ohio. And Brandenburg was a Ku Klux Klan member. And he was a leader. And he invited the press to a rally. And at that rally, he you know, basically threatened the United States government and said that if it kept on in the way it was going, that they would have their vengeance. And so because of that, Ohio put him in, tried him and put him in jail. But it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and see what they have to say. And this one I brought in because, number one, it was the AFL-CIO, who the Ku Klux Klan hated, that defended the Ku Klux Klan. And number two is it's similar to what they're trying to hold Donald Trump on now. So watch this.
This is 60 Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. During wars and emergencies, free speech and press frequently are curtailed. Government officials seek to limit dissent or criticism in the name of defense. Early examples include the Alien and Sedition Acts of the 1790s and restrictions on expression imposed during the Civil War. From World War I through the McCarthy era of the 1950s, states and the national government enacted laws punishing suspected anarchists, socialists, and communists for advocating draft resistance, mass strikes, or the violent overthrow of the government. Many people were prosecuted for violating the laws. In the 1969 case of Brandenburg versus Ohio, the Supreme Court adopted an approach to free speech and press that was much more tolerant of provocative, inflammatory speech than past approaches. The court explained that its decisions had fashioned the principle that the constitutional guarantees of free speech and free press do not permit a state to forbid or proscribe advocacy of the use of force or of law violation, except where such advocacy is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and is likely to incite or produce such action. Between 1969 and 2001, the court heard very few cases involving the Brandenburg test. However, in 2001, terrorist attacks on the United States rekindled public debate about whether the Brandenburg test is too lenient in times of war and emergency.
So,
useless bunch of people.
Well, the irony of this racist group utilizing the AFL-CIO to protect their right to free speech and actually having a landmark case decided based on it is just remarkable. And only in America could such a thing happen. But the one thing, if you heard in there, what it said was that you can't arrest or hold somebody unless they try to incite violence. Now, the Brandenburg case, when he spoke a lot of racist comments, and they were terrible comments, but he didn't incite violence. But they're going to, I mark my words, they're going to use that test on Trump and on January 6th. And they're going to say that his words caused violent actions.
They've been, but maybe they just said you can't hold somebody if you didn't commit violence, right?
If you didn't try to incite the people to commit violence.
Okay.
And Brandenburg at his Ku Klux Klan meeting said lots of nutty, horrible, terrible things, but he didn't incite violence, and so this is going to likely, and that's why I showed it. I want everybody to see, because you're going to see this on the news after this January 6th stuff. They're going to incite that Brandenburg test, and the question is going to be, did Donald Trump incite people to violence or to an action? And they're going to use his words where he said, let's go peacefully now to.
Well, now they're saying, and I saw that too, skimming, that he was loosening security.
Yeah, that he was loosening security, and that he knowingly he knew that people had weapons and whatever else. What about what Schumer said and Maxine Waters? That your father brings up a good point. So the thing is that Maxine Waters did tell people to go out and beat people up. Schumer threatened the SCOTUS, but there was no action afterwards, right? So even though Maxine Waters said, go out and get in their face and do this and do that, there was no actual case that could be tied to Maxine Waters' words. So can she be brought up on that? No, because nobody was incited to do anything that we know of, right? But perhaps, just perhaps, the Chuck Schumer situation might come into play because that guy tried to assassinate, what's his face? The Supreme Court Justice. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Just went out of my head. The one Trump, Kavanaugh. Because the guy showed up at his house with the intent to assassinate him, and they arrested him. So it could be that might go back to Schumer. If he says, well, Schumer said whatever, or Maxine Waters said, then they can be brought up and they can be held for inciting violence. But the case has to be brought. So, these are the things that people have to understand about the Supreme Court. They change our society with every decision they make, and it can change it enormously. But there has to be a case, and it has to be a case they decide to take, and it has to be based in the Constitution. They're not going to hear just any case.
But like even with January 6th, they had said, and they had documentation, like Nancy Pelosi knew, the FBI had known what was going to happen January 6th, that there was going to be something going on. So it wasn't Trump's speech on January 6th. They knew something was going on. They had traces of Facebook conversations and whatnot. Nancy Pelosi was warned and did not step up security.
Right.
She said no.
So that could be negligence. That could be dereliction of duty. That could be any of those things.
But you don't hear about that anymore.
Well, again, somebody has to bring the case. And these cases can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time they get to the Supreme
But it's
Court.
like, okay, so there's a whole crowd of thousands of people, and there's that one person with the bullhorn. Unless that one person with the bullhorn is going to repeat what's being said, nobody's going to hear it.
Well, I mean,
what do you do? Do you kill that? What do you do?
Well, they're holding people who were there on January 6th for all this time in jail. Some people would know anything.
But a guy kills a guy over duck sauce, and he's home right now.
And he's home right now. Or 150 pounds.
And they threatened. He showed up with a gun. He's been threatening them for a year, but he's out because his brother put $500,000 of bail out. So he's home. And his wife just got arrested for having 9 unregistered guns.
Well, again, our system of justice is not perfect because states have the rights to do lots of things. But let me just say this. For these district attorneys that are not prosecuting, not doing their jobs, the governors of those states, for most of them, every state has its own constitution, and embodied in that constitution are the rules for how the state is governed. Same with the city. A city has a charter, and embodied in that document is the rules for how that city is governed. Our founding fathers were brilliant in what they did. Remember, our founding fathers were suspicious of government. They did not trust government, and so therefore they didn't want government to be that big, and so they gave the power to the people. The problem is we're asleep at the wheel, people. We're not utilizing that power, and we need to start utilizing it first with our vote. And today, in a lot of states, including New York, is election day. You need to get out to vote. You have till 9 o'clock in New York, so you got another 4 minutes. That's your first thing, is utilizing your right to vote, register and vote. Next is your power of voice. You have to question these politicians. You can't just sit back and do nothing. Your grandmother says, because we're in the twilight zone, that's why this stuff is happening. Well, listen, at the end of the day, these libs are trying to push the Supreme Court around, okay? And the interesting thing is America, because the states all have different rules and regarding abortion, but in some states like New York, you could abort the baby right up to birth. We have the most horrific laws when it comes to abortion. I mean, it's infanticide. But we're the most, if you will, liberal when it comes to abortion. The next one is England. England is, I think, 24 weeks. But most of the other countries, many of them, it's illegal entirely. And the rest are, within the first 8 weeks, all within.
That's what I believe in.
and that's, that's, so to say that America is taking rights away from women, absolutely ridiculous.
Did you see what Dick's Sporting Goods is doing?
I did. I saw it.
Dick's Sporting. Listen, again, like I said, your body, your choice, but to a certain point, if that baby can breathe and live and survive, then guess what? You give it up for adoption. That's it.
Well, how about
if you can't live with that decision? How can you live with killing it?
Listen, how about we start with personal responsibility? How about we start with teaching teenagers about contraception?
You know what? Good luck with that, because guess what? Abortion was legal for decades. And there's a million mothers that have tons and tons of babies. So they didn't exercise that right. Now all of a sudden they want to be mad.
Well, they want to be mad because once again, why are we so mad about the abortion issue and the guns and the prayer in school? Why are we calling the Supreme Court religious fanatics? Because there's an election in November and they're trying to fire up their faith.
You had this right forever. No one exercised it. Now you're upset.
Well, the libs are trying to push around the Supreme Court, and guess what? There's one young girl that won't be pushed around by anyone, including the Speaker of the House. Watch young Ms. Flores stand in defiance as Nancy Pelosi, the woman who says it's about the children, elbows this young girl out of the picture. I love this story.
Nancy Pelosi elbowed this little girl during a photo op? That's the allegation from newly elected Congresswoman Mayra Flores, a Republican who just won an upset victory in Texas in a special election. Flores claims Pelosi tried to shove her young daughter out of the way during her swearing-in ceremony last week, apparently as she tried to beckon somebody to join the photo. Pelosi's spokesman fired back this morning, tweeting, "It's sad to see news outlets that know better misrepresent the Speaker's effort to ensure Representative Flores' daughters wouldn't be hidden behind her in all of the photos of such an important moment for their family." Pelosi's staff also tweeted out this clip saying it shows the Speaker graciously greeting Representative Flores' children.
What do you think? I wish she would have just punched her in the face. That would have been great.
She was trying to make sure she was seen in the photos. So she elbows her. Did you see how she's holding her hand? If a little kid is standing behind you and you want them in a photo, you put your arm around them, you bring them forward, you let them stand in front of you because you're taller and bigger. Oh no.
She also doesn't know where the F she is, that woman. So
she was elbowing that kid. So the libs that love and, so compassionate and love the children are fighting mad, raging, cursing for the right to kill babies at any time, and they are elbowing kids out of photo ops. So I hope everyone enjoyed our little lesson on the Supreme Court and why what these libs are saying is dangerous to society in general, and how so many of these decisions are easily overturned.
They're so okay. Yeah, you know what?
Let's say it.
No, I don't want to. I'm good.
Well,
Jen, I'll have a podcast again if I do.
Did you learn a little bit about the Supreme Court today?
I did, a lot.
Okay, so we know that some of the landmark decisions that changed our world are teetering on a string and can be overturned because many of them really should have gone back to the states to decide because the states are sovereign. So next time a lib says to you, the Supreme Court ought to be taken, dismantled, impeached, or whatever else, remember they are very precious causes that the Supreme Court decided that could easily be overturned because it should have gone back to the states. Jen, you have your last word.
That's it. I'm good.
You're good.
I want to say I can't.
Well, thank you, everybody. And remember, this is all... They're doing it for the theater of the November elections. They want to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't have a chance to run for re-election or run for president again. They want to try to protect their majority. What issues are they trying to hide? Tammy, they're trying to hide the fact that they know that America does not agree with this new liberal philosophy, and they're trying to make sure that they keep control of the House and the Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone over as usual. Great to see you. My beautiful daughter, I love you. And I hope you all enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Bye-bye, everybody.